Hello, happy campers.
Tiny hole.
I'm Spike.
I'm Chris.
And back in the day when every neighborhood had a shopping center, in the back of that shopping center was the neighborhood video store. And in the back of that video store was where they kept all the good stuff. Those were the back rack videos. We are back at last. Don't ask. It's Chris's turn to take us through the back racks now. And he's going to try to give us the history of Hollywood's special effects. I was about to say science fiction. That would have been even better. The history of Hollywood special effects in 20 minutes. I cannot wait to hear this. He's got a stack of talking points about yay thick. So I can't take a deep breath, deep breath, deep breath.
I kid you not, I spent hours doing research on all of this. And oh my goodness, had to knock out a whole lot. Yes. So.
Yes.
So.
Well, we'll work our way through it. Somehow we'll muddle through. Let's see what Mr. Chris has got for us today.
Yes.
So, Chris, introduce us to special effects in Hollywood.
Special effects. Nowadays, you look at special effects and see CGI all over the place. But first of all, special effects just doesn't mean like getting on your computer and looking at, creating, flash a light, lights here, lights there, There's actually, in Hollywood, the definition of special effects is a whole lot more than just big explosions, spaceships, superheroes flying around, things like that. Yes. There's a bunch of stuff that I didn't even realize or consider to be special effects, like cartoons is literally special effects.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly did not know that, and I did not put it in this category. But there's special effects with cartoons, and then also taking the time of just putting like cartoons and live action, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, blending the two and everything. It's like everything has like a certain type of rhythm that goes on. Now, in Hollywood, special effects is the only thing that keeps growing. Literally. Now everybody can do it. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on whatever computer device that you have.
We do it on this podcast.
Yeah, like you can do it anywhere. But everything starts somewhere. So, here's the history of how it kind of began and how it affected of each movie that changed where we are now. So, get ready for some history lesson.
Oh, raptured.
Yay! In 1987, Oscar Reginer, or whatever, I cannot pronounce that word, created a very first effect, which will lead to a bunch of what they call effect project. These special effects are, of course, animation, CGI, doubling, stop motion, and matte painting. So, the words itself, you can tell like what they're talking about. Like matte painting is basically like, background can be used as a whole painting. Wizard of Oz did that, background, big painting, but to you it looks like it just keeps going. So
It's a kind of realistic backdrop.
yes.
If you're a comic book fan, you would think of Alex Ross, where it kind of gets that photorealistic look to it, but it helps stand in for a huge set that would cost about 50 to 100 times more to create.
Yes.
If you can get it that cheap.
Indeed.
But matte painting has long been a nice even on movies where you don't think of as special effects, matte paintings do a lot of heavy lifting for the camera.
The first stop motion picture ever was a movie called The Humpty Dumpty Circus, 1898. is when that happened.
Hmm.
But Ray Harryhausen changed everything while he made his first movie, Mighty Joe Young, 1949. And then went on to make movies like The Voyage of Sinbad, 1958, Jason and the Argonauts, and so on and so on, where he used basically stop motion animation, where basically just taking clay figures, molding them into like different type of, you know, creatures and stuff like that, and then moving them inch by inch by inch. I think Tim Burton is probably the most recent that you guys have known with movies like Caroline, Nightmare Before Christmas, you know, so on and so on. That
Well, and Beetlejuice too had several stop motion.
Yes. So he changed a whole lot on making stop motion and effects and just making it so crazy and wild.
Mm-hmm.
First movie that really changed the way we look at science fiction films and movies alone was Metropolis. 1927 is when this movie came out. They used a thing that they called the shuffle process, which combines live action with models and images. So the basically miniature models and paintings and stuff like that in the background that really shaped what back then they saw what the future would be now. So and that changed science fiction completely. Like that was the big what? Pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So if you have not seen Metropolis, I suggest you check that out. It's a very classic film with visuals. Even though yes, it is in black and white, it will make you feel probably like this small. You're just like, wow. 2001: A Space Odyssey came out in 1968. They did another special effect that they call Stargate sequence, which is where you take the same scene and loop it over and over and over and over again until you get like these weird lining lights, which in the beginning of the movie you will see like lights coming towards you. They use it in like the Star Trek and stuff like that, Star Wars and stuff, wherever they light speed.
It's actually an offshoot of an animation trick called cycling,
Yes.
where you're Hanna-Barbera was notorious for this, although all the animation studios did it when they needed to save money. Basically, you'd take a background and you would paint a long background, and then you would fold it over and put it onto two little rollers, and basically you would have it underneath the camera. You'd have your main action on a separate cell, and then you would just roll, the background would just roll in the background. So the background would eventually repeat. The idea is you're supposed to be focusing on the action in the foreground. So what he's talking about is basically taking that and jacking it up to like the nth level where it becomes almost subliminal. It actually becomes an effect of its own because you're just blown off the natural limits of it.
Exactly.
Sorry, we know. We'll
No,
go back to this.
no. That's exactly yes. So then we skip a few more years with, of course, Star Wars 1977. This is where you get your mini models again. Yes, remember, if you look at Star Wars and like you're just like, wow, look at all that. That's basically just like little miniature toys on a string that they're just like, you know. I mean, and of course they also use pretty much stop motion animation as well with it. I mean, it's just basically over the years taking special effects of one and then adding it with another, and just like, so you'll have like a movie with full of like different type of visuals.
It becomes a cumulative thing where you start with you start with basic motion, which is just the motion of the camera film, and then that adds the illusion of motion in a picture, and then you figure out how you can do that in animation, and then you figure out how you can do it with stop motion. Each one piles on the what came before because people master the old techniques, and then they're able to innovate with a new technique that draws upon the old one.
Yes.
Remember, every one of these is based upon the fact that if you run enough pictures fast enough, your mind accepts it as constant motion instead of seeing a series of separate pictures. So,
Oh, yeah.
and honestly, the original Star Wars trilogy, I think, was pretty much the last of the practical effects films, wasn't it?
Not really.
Not really.
Not really.
But it was one of the last great ones.
But another special effect that you wouldn't consider being special effect, but it actually is, sound effects. In Star Wars, they used a lot of pig squealing, just all kinds of different type of noises that really changed the game when it comes to putting sounds and making it into whatever you want, basically. And apparently Star Wars really upped the Nancy on that one.
Mhm.
So,
That's called Foley work. That's the term for it. If you ever sit down and look at a movie's credits and you see Foley, those are the people who make the sound effects. They're the ones who. You got to understand, when you film somebody slamming a door shut, you hear it go boom. If you want to hear it really slam shut, you need a Foley artist who will sit there and go with the film after it's been filmed. They'll see the door slam, then they'll do a nice big, very loud thing to get your attention so it kind of carries across to you. Because microphone technology has progressed over the years, but still not to the point where it has the effect that filmmakers would like it to have. So, Foley artistry, yeah. It's something the beloved absolutely adores. She always wanted to get into sound effects.
and it would be pretty cool because you could just go anywhere and just like.
The neat thing is you can create your own sounds, or you can take pre-existing sounds, like you talked about the pig squeals. If you just play that in the background to completely unrelated video, you start to associate the two. So for example, when you hear, I can't even think of a good Foley example right now, but you could,
Jurassic Park.
like Jurassic Park, you hear an elephant roaring or something, but you see a dinosaur doing it on the screen. You think that's what the dinosaurs sound like. You don't associate that with an elephant trumpeting. So,
Cool. Pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that, sound effect is, special effect.
right.
So, 1979 Aliens.
Oh boy.
This is where basically puppetry costumes come in, where you put somebody in a costume and then have somebody with wires hooked up to the costume to make the head move, the arms move, the mouth move, and all that. So you're combining human and basically electronic together to make things go. This also helped out with the Terminator movie, when at the beginning of the film, when you saw the end of the world and saw the T whatever they were walking, just shooting guns. That all was also helped out on
Puppetry.
that. So.
Right. And there's a lot of credit that needs to be given to Jim Henson that people
Yes.
don't realize. Because if it weren't for Jim Henson and his ability to simplify and expand upon puppetry, you understand, until Jim Henson, puppetry was Charlie McCarthy. He was sitting there with a dummy on your lap. It was Jim Henson who figured out how to do puppetry in scenery and how to do puppetry in backgrounds, foregrounds, how to put the Muppets he created out in the real world. That's where all the Muppet movies came from.
Mm-hmm.
Those are and puppetry really is a practical effect. And by practical, I mean it's not digital. It happens in the real world. Everything he's described so far has pretty much been practical effects. You sit there, you wear a dinosaur costume, you go, "Arr," and you're Godzilla. You do, those are practical special effects. Digital special effects,
Yeah.
done to death. But let's move on.
I mean, the reason why I decided to do this episode of special effects is because I watch a lot of people that reacts to movies and stuff like that, and whenever it comes to special effects, they'll watch an old movie and be like, "Wow, it still lives up to this day. The special effects lives up to this day," and stuff like that. And it just bothers me because it's like it all started somewhere and it grows. Like special effects is one thing that has grown from the beginning to now, and it's going to grow more even past your time. You know, it's going to get better. They do it in video games, you know, so on and so on. So it's like, stop saying, "Wow, back then," you know. It's like you got to remember that's the time period. All right, it's like, you know, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm hip.
Especially when back then the special effects was a whole lot better than what they are now. Just saying.
Well, back then they had to try harder, so it stood out a little more when they succeeded.
Okay, this one is the only movie that scares me to this day. I will never watch it. I don't care how many times they remake it because I'm pretty sure I heard that they're remaking it again. But The Thing, 1982. This movie used robotic puppetry, practical monster effects, regular puppetry. So there's like a bunch of puppetry stuff being used there. And like I said, there's nothing like taking a silicone skin and having it rip off your body and then like these spider legs come out. Looks way better having people sit there, mold somebody's head, put realistic hair and, you know, skin on it, and then having somebody else, you know, controlling the head movements and stuff like that. Then nowadays when they use CGI to where it's like, that doesn't look real. You know, just saying. And that really scared me. I'm sorry. The Thing scares the hell out of me. And it's mostly just the whole practical effects that they used that did it. Just creeps me out.
Now, anybody who's watched our network or our shows for any length of time knows full well where I stand on the value of special effects. We've talked about it here on this show. If Chris prefers the 1982 version of The Thing, I prefer the 1950s version because you don't get to see the thing from another world. You don't get to see it because you don't actually get to see the thing. It's all about the tension. It's all about the suspense. This one, it becomes more about the graphics and about the cool special effects and stuff. Each one has its appeal. You know which side I would fall down upon, but hey, this is about special effects. So the 1982 version is far more relevant here than the 1955 version. I think it was 55.
Maybe the 1955 version would have been up my alley more. Because I still have
it's still
nightmares.
creepy as all get out. Imagine sci-fi is film noir. That's The Thing from another world.
See, I like The Thing. Oh man, The Thing with the dogs in the movie. The dude's head turning into a spider, which honestly affected me more than what it did in the It movie. But the scene where they're doing CPR on the guy's chest and his whole chest just caved in. Just like I was like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm out. Like I'm done with this. I'm done. I can't take too much more of this. But that's what special effects does. It either wows you, makes you think, or makes you want to just like go, wow, it's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Which also moves on to 1986, The Fly. This movie used facial prosthetics, which also allows change the game as well, because makeup, again, you didn't think that would be special effects, but it is.
Mm.
Because you're turning somebody, taking their skin and either turning their skin into rotten or deforming it or whatever. And then you also have, they're able to take like this mask to put it underneath the mask so it can be used as electronics as well. So you can do all kinds of things with that. It's just, yeah, another form of special effects, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now, even though when I looked this up, it was talking about Terminator 2. The thing is, I know it started with The Abyss. CGI. The beginning of CGI. Now, The Abyss, if you've never seen that, that is a really good movie. James Cameron. About just people, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what they were looking for, but their job was just basically like, you know, being underwater, you know, in a huge sub, just like drilling. I think they were drilling something. And then they find an alien species. In that movie, they used CGI, which is computer generating effects. Where it's like they take like a form in that one and in Terminator 2, the bad guy in Terminator 2, trying to remember T-200.
The T-1000.
T-1000. Liquid. It was like a metal watery thing. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but
he was liquid metal, kind of like a robot made out of mercury.
Yes, exactly. And how they got that effect started in The Abyss. So I would suggest watch The Abyss. Terminator 2 is really good as well. Really, really good, honestly. But The Abyss is an amazing movie. It's really underrated, I feel.
Yeah,
This is a good movie.
that. Yeah, Terminator 2 is certainly better than all the movies that came after it.
Yes.
Well, they had even higher special effects budgets. 1992 was an excellent year because all of America really got introduced to CGI that year because it was so blatant. You saw it in Terminator 2 and you saw it in Toy Story. You saw two directions that CGI could go. Now we've gotten to the point where everybody uses CGI as a cost-cutting measure.
Yes.
Or they think they're saving money, but they're not.
So this is where there is a thing called too much CGI. And we've talked about this 1,000 times because Star Wars, the so-called prequels that was originally 1, 2, and 3, you know, Jar Jar Binks and stuff, all that movie used was CGI. And honestly, it looked horrible. It literally looked like live action mixed with cartoon.
Which is odd because it was produced by ILM, which is George Lucas's effects studio, basically.
Yes.
He created ILM to handle things on Star Wars and wound up becoming like the premier special effects house in Hollywood. Everybody uses ILM, Industrial Lights and Magic, for their special effects, and pretty much everybody uses everybody pretty much uses Skywalker Ranch to do their sound recording. Just because that's what everybody uses, so they're really, really, really experienced at it.
Yes. So it's like you can go with good CGI where it's like you can hardly tell it's there, or just use it all and then you can totally tell how fake it really is. But because of stuff like that moved on to movies like Jurassic Park, which came out in '93, and that you had like puppetry, You had sound effects. You had, I mean, the galore of special effects that was used in that movie, even CGI. And most of it just wowed you, completely wowed you. Again, I cannot express the feeling of having that T Rex step out into the rain, give off that big roar, and it just stomping around. The close up, which was not CGI, that dinosaur head was really there, moving up to Sam Neill and that little girl and breathing on them. It's like, what? Like, I would be peeing my pants if I was actually in that scene. That was so cool. But that whole scene just made you go, wow, I'm hooked. This is like, the build up, the slow build up to this moment. You're just like, I'm afraid to move. And that's the great thing about how the whole thing. And if you sit there and you able to go back and watch the special effects of the Jurassic Park movie and see how everything is. And I know that there's people that nitpick some certain things because it's like, what was it here lately? Like everybody saw the hands with the raptor at the doorway. Like you can see the person in the background. But it's like, still, you don't pay attention when you're watching the movie because you're just sitting there like, oh, wow, this is so cool.
And that's part of the thing about Jurassic Park is that Steven Spielberg, who was the director on that, he wanted to use the practical effects because it would get the best reaction from the actors.
Yes.
You need to, one of the most important things to learn about special effects is you need to learn when to use it and when not to. In Steven Spielberg's case, he declined to use the CGI as much as he could because he wanted people to actually interact with the things and get a more natural thing, because that's a Steven Spielberg trademark.
And that's what helps because again with the Star Wars movies, you could totally tell that the actors were not like looking over the character's head.
Right.
And
that's kind of a problem with the CGI thing. And I mentioned George Lucas earlier. Without George Lucas, CGI would probably be about 15, 20 years behind the times right now. Because I mentioned he created Industrial Lights and Magic. He also created Pixar.
Yes.
Okay. Pixar was the animation branch of Industrial Lights and Magic. ILM wound up focusing on effects for other studios, and Pixar wound up becoming a studio of its own after George Lucas sold it to Steve Jobs, basically, is what happened. So you get George Lucas, Steve Jobs, and those people went their way with CGI. Steven Spielberg was more of a traditionalist who preferred to stick with, at the time, practical effects, although he would eventually give in and start using CGI too.
But it's really cool on how just the difference and the practical I believe is always the best way to go. That's why when Star Wars Force Awakens came along and J.J. Abrams brought out the aliens on stage at this big event, and I was like, we're going back to the puppets? I'm so in. I'm so in.
Which is odd because a couple of decades ago, people have been like, puppets, really? Now you've had so much CGI crammed down your throat that you're like, yeah, puppets.
Because it's so more believable. But anyway, now we're going to where we are now. Mm-hmm. And one of the most biggest and probably something that has really changed the industry of now, and that is motion capture special effects. Now, Planet of the Apes movie really did, and I'm talking about the newer Planet of the Apes movies, with Andy Serkis going around pretending to be Caesar in this suit with dots all over him, where the computer doesn't pay attention to his movements, but his face as well. Every wrinkle, every movement of his jaw, the eyebrows, every bit of it. And because of that, has led into video games, which also makes video games make look more realistic, and to other movies. King Kong, the newer King Kong, other than, let's not forget about the older King Kong and Godzilla movies where it was just a dude in a suit.
Hmm.
It's freaking awesome. But, like, again, there's so much special effects. It was really hard to just narrow all this down and get what I want out of it because there's so much. But then I was like, maybe one episode we'll just talk about animation, and to where it is now.
We could spend an entire episode just talking about Ray Harryhausen and his stop motion.
Yeah, like,
and how
so
the influence that had on Will Vinton and his claymation models, which led to Wallace and Gromit and the PJs and the California Raisins and all kinds of stuff. It's incredible how all this stuff leads into each other. So instead of 20, we got 30 minutes, Chris. You got anything else you want to put out there?
No, just that, next time you watch a good movie that has special effects, just remember how it all started and where it went to. And also, I want to give a huge shout out, okay? If you want to know more about special effects and how special effects are made, especially nowadays, and you want to listen to people who know about special effects, talk about special effects, and how it impacted movies from the past to the present, then I suggest you take a look at YouTube channel Corridor Crew. Corridor Crew are a bunch of special effects artists who make their own shorts, who look at movies and they talk about the bad and the good of visual effects. And they also just don't stop there. They'll bring stunt people in and talk about stunts in movies. And it's really entertaining. They make it entertaining. You'll laugh and you'll be like, wow, I didn't know that. Like the Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. Their last episode, they had a stuntman on there who did the stunt for when Peter Parker swung from a building and hit the wall of another building and fell down. They actually took that entire wall out and put a foam wall and brought a special artist to come in to paint the entire foam wall into a mural so it looks like he actually face plants a brick wall. Interesting things that you probably don't care about, but is actually interesting to the ones that do care about movies. Corridor Crew, go look them up. They're on YouTube. They're pretty cool. So
Geek It Out sends it fun.
yes, I watch them all the time. They're good stuff.
Okay, so that takes care of a very brief introduction to special effects in Hollywood. So I'm on bat for next week. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm thinking about doing a double feature. Y'all let me know what you think, either over on Chris's Movie Geek group or let us know at the Who, What, Where comment sections.
Yeah, if you guys want us to talk about something that you're interested in, like a special, like it could be movies, it could be like something that, it has something to do with movies, or TV shows. Let us know. We'll check it out.
I'm kind of torn right now on what I'm going to do for Backrack next week. It's either going to be a double feature of Willard and Ben, sponsored by Chris's Disappearing Peanut Butter, and there's a story. Or I may do Christmas movies worth watching because we're getting to that time of year again. So, let me know what you think down in the comments. Send the emails. You saw all that stuff at the beginning of the video. I seriously doubt I'll put it in. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you want what you would like to see here at the Backracks. So, until next time,
I'm Chris.
I'm Spike. We'll see you in the back of the store, y'all.
Oh yeah, not in the porn section.
You and your porn.